Hello, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are we all doing today? Trust you all doing well and getting ready for the New York session today. Um, let's confirm that we are good to go this morning. So I would like to see some feedbacks. So if you can see my screen and you can hear my voice clearly, please type in hi in the comment section, as this will help me to confirm that we are on the same page here. So if you can see me, you can see my screen, you can hear my voice clearly, let me know in the comment section by typing hi, and let's get this party started. Okay, let's see what we have here. Okay, I can see 6532. Good morning to you. Thank you. 852 8683 7007. Okay, good morning. 532. Good morning to you. Hacky88. Good morning. 871. Thank you very much. Hey Carrie, how are you doing this morning? Good morning to you too. I think with this bunch of comments, I would take this as a confirmation that we are good to go this morning. Greetings to everyone. My name is Sheriff Daramola, and for the next 1 hour, I'm going to be your host, where we shall be evaluating the financial market using technical parameters such as key levels, trend lines, and chart patterns to facilitate well-informed trading decision based on historical price movement. And for those who are joining us for the first time, you are highly welcome. I'm so glad to have you around with us, as what we simply do here on a daily basis is to come together as a community, gathering in anticipation of the New York session. And during this time, we are going to be reviewing and managing our current positions, while we also aim to position ourselves strategically for today's trading session. And you know how we do it here. The first thing we want to be doing this morning is to check on the economic calendar to see what is really going on from the fundamental perspective and what we want to be looking out for today. And in fact, today is laced with a couple of high impact events. And what we normally focus on are high impact events that will be affecting any of the currencies that we have been monitoring. And considering this week, we have the pound sterling, the US dollar, and the Japanese yen. So for today, let me zoom this in a little bit so that we can see things clearly. So for today, Wednesday, June 21st, we have the consumer price index, though this has already happened earlier today, as we saw data came in just as the previous data, that is at 8.7%, which is actually obviously beyond expectations here, giving us a positive variance of 0.94. And we saw how the market reacted positively to that data, but immediately we saw a downturn in that regard. So we are going to be looking into the market structure of the GBPUSD to see how the market has reacted to this data, while we also look out for opportunities to maximize our potential on that chart for today. Then we also have the first Chairman Powell, who is going to be having a speech, who's going to be having his testification before the House of Congress today. And this is one event that majority in the market will be looking forward to, as it will provide a broad overview of the economy and monetary policy. So this is one thing, and it's going to continue till tomorrow. So we are going to be looking forward to see what are the things it's going to say, and what insight whatever it says is going to affect the movement of price action across the US dollar pairs. So with that being said here, let's dive right into the charts, where we shall be looking at things from a technical standpoint, at the same time position ourselves for the New York session today. So as usual, the first instrument we are going to be taking this morning is going to be the US Oil Spot. Now, on the US Oil Spot, we had, it has been a quite interesting start to the week, as we saw how price action has been more of a bearish momentum since the beginning of the week. And you can see this is evident on the 1 hour time frame. And remember that at the beginning of the week, we acknowledged a key level situated at the $72 level, which was serving as our yardstick to guide trading activities at the beginning of the week. And you will notice here that since the beginning of the week, price action has remained below the key level to emphasize the strength of the sellers in this particular market. And what we saw in addition to that key level was initially a bearish gap here, which revealed the nature of trading activities during the course of the weekend. Then we saw how price action started on a very strong bearish nose, as we saw price started at around the $71.45 level, dropped into the support line here at the $70.85 area. Then we saw price climb back into that resistant level to give us a flat channel to work with at the beginning of the week. And you know how we do it whenever we have this kind of simple flat channel. We want to remain patient, waiting for structures to mature, where the breakout of the resistant line will give us an opportunity to buy, and the breakdown of the support line will give us an opportunity to sell. And I told us all at the beginning of the week that I already had a buy position triggered, and I said here that for those who had missed out on this opportunity, that you really need to remain patient and wait for new structures to mature, where there is a chance that price action could still come back, retest the structure to incite another wave of bullish momentum. And this was exactly what happened, and we were able to capture this move as we saw price action move over 70 to 80 pips in our favor before this bearish momentum began. And you know how we do it in this community. As soon as price action moves significantly well in our favor, we want to be moving our stop losses to secure the position. And if you had done that correctly before you are taking out, you must have moved your stop loss to break even or to a modest price level to protect that position. And if you had done that, you would have been taken out with a modest amount of profit, or at a worst case scenario, break even. Then during our live session on Tuesday, we acknowledge how important this bullish trend line is for us. That was yesterday. And we said here that as long as price action remains above this trend line, we are going to feel comfortable in a buy position while we look out for more opportunity to maximize that move. But if price action breaks down the trend line, retest it, we said we are going to be selling the US Oil Spot. And you saw what happened here. We saw the breakdown. Price action came back to retest that level we said we are going to be using to guide bearish momentum yesterday to signal and trigger our first sell position for the week. And as you can see here, price action moved over 170 pips in our favor. And for those who took advantage of this opportunity, well done to you for being on standby to have caught that opportunity. And look at what we had here. The market gave us the privilege of maximizing the move as we added more positions at the breakdown of the $70.85 level and also the $70.50 level to maximize that move. So for those who took advantage of these opportunities, well done to you for being on standby to have caught that move. And I do hope that you moved your stop losses accordingly. And if you had done that, you would definitely have been taken out of these positions at profit. So well done, guys. And so now that we're heading into the New York session today, what is going to be our plans? How do we intend to take advantage of any potential trading opportunity? Are we going to continue looking out for selling opportunity, considering the continued selling pressure below our key level at the $72 mark, or are we going to be getting ready to buy because of this buy potential we saw here during the mid hours of the New York session yesterday? So before we go into the details of what our expectations will be like for today, I would like us to scale up a little bit into the higher time frame so that we can have a quick glance at things from an holistic standpoint before we come back into the details on the 1 hour time frame. Now, scaling up into the 4 hours time frame, this was what we saw at the beginning of the week. So if I zoom out here and taking into consideration what has been happening in this market in the last couple of months, it is quite obvious that price action has been somewhat on a bearish turn. And if we consider what has been happening since the beginning of last month, we had lower highs in this market, which we connected to give us this descending trend line you can see on your screen right now. And in as much as the character of price action is looking bearish in some way, we called our attention to one important structure around this area, which needed to be addressed to guide our trading activity for the week, and that is around that $67 level. And you can see what we have here. This level here has restricted sellers from finding new lows in this market. As you can see, any attempt by the sellers to break through has been met with strong resistance from the buyers at every point in time. And a couple of weeks ago too, we saw the same thing, which led into this bullish momentum that brought price back into the trend line, that descending trend line we identified earlier. And since then, we have seen a situation where price has been caught within a consolidation phase around that area, making that area a very important center of focus for this week, as it depends on how price action reacts to this confluence between the key level at the 72 and the descending trend line we identified earlier that will determine what our next line of action will be. So at the beginning of the week, we were projecting that depending on what happens here, if we do see a breakout of the key level, which also shares a confluence with the descending trend line, we shall be looking out for buying opportunities above that structure. However, if price action continues to find selling pressure below the 72 and that trend line, it could be an opportunity for us to continue a sell-off in this market. And if you look at what has been happening since the beginning of the week, it has been more of selling pressure around that area, hereby giving us an insight into the strength of the sellers and also increasing the chances that sellers could take over this market for the second half of this week. Now, with the information we have gathered here on the 4 hours time frame, we want to scale down into a much more lower time frame where we want to see how participants in this market has actually been relating to this confluence since the beginning of this week. Now, in order to do this, we will scale down into the 1 hour time frame where we begin to see things more clearly. So I will zoom right into the current structure, and considering the impulsive bearish move that started yesterday, bringing price into the $69.80 level, I'm of the opinion that the bullish momentum we saw here that brought price back into the structure may likely turn out to be a retracement of that impulsive move, where continued selling pressure here could incite another wave of bearish momentum to the downside. And now, if we are going to be thinking in this perspective, how do we intend to position ourselves ahead of this move? Now, one of the things that I did here this morning while trying to sniff out the likely direction of where price action will go based on price movement this morning, I was able to identify the fact that price action has been a little bit bullish since the beginning of today. And one thing I will do here is to connect the series of higher lows. So I'm going to do some little adjustment here as we have something different from what I identified at the beginning of the week. So we have a new trend line right now after connecting the series of higher lows. So I hope this low here will serve as the next higher low at this point. So you will see here that since the later part of the New York session yesterday, price action has been looking a little bit bullish, which I said might likely be a retracement of that impulsive move that we saw here. So now that we have the situation marked out on our chart, how do we intend to maximize the potential of a bearish move here? So if the selling pressure around the $71.45 level happens and leading into a situation where price action breaks down the trend line to the downside, then at this point I want to be getting ready to be part of the second wave of the bearish momentum that started yesterday. And to help us guide that opportunity, I want to do some readjustment here. So I'll be readjusting this key level at the $71.15 level. So let's label this one. So you want to mark this level out on your chart. And what we are going to be doing here is to see price action break down, retest this level on our lower time frame to give us an opportunity to sell. And if you look at this level closely, you will see how it has shared the confluence with that ascending trend line. So for today now, we have two structures we are going to be using to guide our trading activity. So the first one here is this trend line. And then the second one is the $71.15 level, where the breakdown retest of the structure will be welcoming selling opportunities in this market. So I hope that we'll be on standby to catch any of these opportunities as we continue to monitor price action. So we want to screenshot this and then or mark these levels out on your chart so that you can use it as a reference point when you're about to make your independent decision. Now, in as much as we are looking out for selling opportunities here, you know how we do it in this community. We want to keep all our options as open as possible. So we want to also look at the potentials the buyers have in this market before we conclude on this one. So now, based on this current structure, what do we want to see on this chart that will make us change our bias from bearish to bullish? Well, from the look of things here and considering the strong selling niche around that key level of ours at the $72 area, I am of the opinion that the only way to buy at this point is to wait for price action to take out all the sell positions along the $72 area, where a retest of structure will definitely welcome an opportunity to join the trend continuation to the upside. So this is what I'm going to be looking out for to buy the US All Spot for today. So a breakout of the $72 level will be that opportunity I'm looking forward to buy. But if that does not happen and price action continues to remain below the $71.45 level, breaking down the trend line, then we are going to be looking out for selling opportunities below these levels. So that is my idea on the US All Spot for today. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to read through the chat and also give you the time to screenshot my screen so that you can use it as a reference point for today's trading session. So let's see what anyone with questions or further clarifications regarding what I just explained. Hello, Haki88. I'm fine, thank you. Good morning to you. Melero, good morning. How are you doing today? And I can see you 282830. Good morning to you. Thumbs up to you, Haki88. All right. So in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we're all on the same page here. So I will be moving on to the next option. I will be checking the comment section as usual to see if there are any inquiries for me. So the next option we are going to be taking this morning, it's going to be the USTech100. Now on the USTech100, it has been more of selling this instrument since the beginning of the week. So this is the 1 hour time frame here, and in fact the market has been on range bound in the last 24 hours, which emphasized the level of indecision in this market. And it's quite obvious that participants in this market are looking forward to a catalyst that will drive price movement. And if you know that we are looking forward to first chairman's testification before the Congress today, which will give us a lot of insight into the economic policies and what might likely happen. And these are things that will drive price movement in this market. So let's run through how the week started for us, what we saw at the beginning of the week that made us to sell the US Tech 100. So the first thing I will do here is to scale up to the 4 hours time frame, where we saw things from an holistic perspective and identified a bullish momentum. So what we did at the beginning of the week was to consider the activity of price action since the beginning of the month of May. And in fact, we had a couple of trend lines here to emphasize the strength of the buyers. Now, the first one here, we saw this major trend line, the thick green line on your screen right here, before we saw the deviation from that trend line started at the beginning of this month. As you can see, we saw the deviation from that trend line, and we had a new trend line here, which also emphasized how strong the buyers are. Then after this deviation again, we saw another one during the second week of this month. We saw another deviation from this one here, which gave us another new trend line, and this has been holding for a while now before we saw the breakdown of this level at the beginning of this week. So you can see here that in the last 7 to 10 weeks in this market, the market has been very, very bullish, and in fact, it's a very, very sharp and steep trend line we have here. Now, if you look at this structure closely, you would agree with me that a retracement seems long overdue here, as participants who bought the price of the US Tech 100 at a very cheap price, let's say around the $13,000 area, will want to be doing some profit-taking activities, which might reflect on the chart as a retracement of that impulsive move, probably into one of this trend line. It could be this one before another wave of bullish momentum, or it could even drop to as far as the major trend line, where the appearance of buy pressure might incite another wave, or probably break down that structure to the downside to incite a sell-off. Now, will this turn out to be a retracement phase? That is the next question we want to be asking. Because right now, since the beginning of last week, we have seen a situation here where price action has been trapped within a range. So we have within the, hold on a second, let's mark these levels out. So between the 15,300 and the $15,000 mark, you will see price has been within that range since the midweek of last week. And going into this week, we can see what has been going on here. So what we said at the beginning of the week was to try and understand how participants in the market will be reacting within this level to decide if it's going to be more of a bearish momentum or a bullish one. And so when we scale down into the lower time frame, that was on Monday, this was what we were able to spot on this chart. So I will zoom right in so that we can see things clearly. So at the beginning of the week, we initially saw how price action was trapped within the 15,135 level and the 15,075 area to give us an insight into the level of indecision at that point. And you know how we do it whenever we have this kind of simple flat channel. We want to remain patient, waiting for structures to mature to give us an opportunity to buy or sell. And what we are going to be looking out for is either a breakout of the resistance line to give us an opportunity to buy, or the breakdown of the support line to give us an opportunity to sell. And with our orders placed at both ends, as you can see here, we had our sell stop triggered, and in fact the market gave us multiple attempts to be able to be part of the bearish move. And if you look at this whole structure here, the support line here has definitely been rejecting every attempt by the buyers to break above this area. So it has been more of selling below the $15,075 area. Now, in addition to that one was this trend line, which we identified at the beginning of the week, which we said we were supposed to be using to guide our trading activity for the week. Then in the last 24 hours, we have seen price action break out of this trend line a couple of times, giving us an idea that the buyers are gradually gaining some momentum. Now, if we zoom out and look at this closely, this is the $15,000 level we saw on the higher time frame, and you can see we have been noticing some buy pressure around that area. Look at what happened here yesterday morning. Look at what happened during the New York session yesterday. We saw a huge breakdown, price climb back up immediately, and since then we have a higher low in this market. So if this higher low persists, then we might likely be seeing a bullish momentum. So let's talk about the expectations or the potentials that the buyers have in this market before we go into the seller's expectation. So for me to buy the USTech 100 today, and considering that price action has just broken out that bearish trend line, it's reasonable to look out for buying opportunities above the structure. But we will need a level to work with on that regard. So here we have the support line for the week. Remember, this was our support line for the week, situated at the 15,075. So this was our first support line where we saw buying pressure struggle to negate sellers' attempts. So at this point, I would want to see price action break out of that level. Remember, we are not getting too excited here, as we will need further confirmation to happen to reveal that buyers are gradually gaining momentum. So what we are going to see on the chart that will give us an insight into the bullish attempt here is price coming back to retest the structure. So this will happen on our lower time frame. So as soon as we have a breakout of the 15,075, we shall scale down into our lower time frame where we want to see a retest of structure and continue buying pressure, informing us that sellers are finding it difficult to drop below the 15,075, after which we want to be joining a bullish move, and then we could have a buy stop order above the 15,135 to maximize the potential of this bullish move. So to buy the USTech 100 today, we will want to see a breakout retest of the 15,075 before we can start considering selling this instrument. So let's mark these levels out so that we can capture this opportunity. Now, in as much as we're looking out for buying opportunities, we cannot ignore the potentials of sellers. And in fact, since the beginning of the week, you will see that sellers have been dictating the pace, though we had some bullish traction in the last 24 hours. But you will see how the 15,075 level has been negating all the bullish attempt here. And if this persists, there is a high chance that price will drop significantly well to the downside. So at this point in time, how do we intend to maximize the potential of this bearish move? Now, if we bring out our line chart here, we have a structure around this level at the $15,050 mark, which I'm going to, okay, 15,045, I think. So we have this level marked out here, which we are going to be using to guide our trading activity for any selling opportunity today. So what I'm going to be doing here is to see price drop below this level. If you bring up our candle chart here, you will see how this level has been a major determinant of price action since in the last 24 hours. We saw one here, we saw the breakdown, we saw price action climb back above, we saw buy pressure above this level, and this time around we are noticing buy pressure again around this area. So you will see how important this level is based on this current market structure. So one thing I'm going to be looking out for to sell the USTech 100 today is to see a breakdown retest of the structure. So mind you, I'm not having a sell stop order in this case. The market has been very choppy, so I would want to see a breakdown. Then you scale down to your lower time frame. It could be your 1 hour your 1 minute or 3 minutes time frame, whichever case it may be. Look out for retest of structure, after which we want to join a continuation to the downside. And remember that we have a key level at the $15,000 mark, where the breakdown of that level as well will be welcoming more opportunities to maximize the potential of this bearish move. So you want to mark these levels out on your chart, or screenshot my screen if you want to, so that you can use it as a reference point when you're about to make your independent decision for today. So if you have any questions regarding what I just explained so far, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So I will be holding on for the next 10 to 15 seconds to read through the comment section and see if there are any questions. And you can as well use that time to mark out these levels and use or screenshot my screen, so that you can use them as a reference point when you're about to make your independent decision. So I can see Majajami, good morning to you. Majajami, how are you doing today? 258, good morning. Susie MB, good morning to you. Skyborn, how are you doing today? Good morning to you too. All right, so in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we are on the same page. So I will be moving on to the next instrument for today. So the next instrument on our watch list for this week is the GBPUSD, and in fact we have a very profitable position running at this point. And since the beginning of this week, we have been selling this instrument despite the anticipation of the CPI data that came up later at the beginning of today's session. And in fact, we saw how the market reacted to that data here. We saw this impulsive move to the upside, but it wasn't strong enough, as we saw how sellers came in to negate the attempt by the buyers to break out of this range that we have here. And this is a clear sign that sellers are still very strong in this market, despite a positive, more than beyond expectation data today. It wasn't strong enough to break through. So at this point in time, we shall be tending more to a bearish momentum. So let's run through what we saw at the beginning of the week that incited the idea of selling the GBPUSD. So the first thing we did at the beginning of the week was to look at the 4 hours time frame, where we saw a setup which we are supposed to use for the week. So initially we saw how the market has been on a very strong bullish momentum since the last week of the month of May. And to emphasize this bullish momentum, we had a couple of ascending channel which we drew after connecting higher highs and higher lows. So we had the first trend line here. So we had the first ascending channel here. Then we saw some deviation happen in this market in the month of at the beginning of this month, actually, leading to the breakout of this resistant line, giving us a new ascending channel to work with for this week. Now, during the second half of last week's trading session, we saw the breakout of this new ascending channel around this area, which led into a situation where price action was caught within a range between the 1.28500 level and the 1.2770 to give us a choppy situation to work with. So let's zoom right in to see what has really been going on in the last couple of weeks, which led into us making the decision we are making so far this week. So now, if you look at the structure here closely, this is what we saw at the beginning of the week. We had our key level situated at the 1.28500 area, and you know how we use our key level in this community. So as long as price remains below the key level, we have no other choice than to look out for selling opportunities. And during the course of last week, we saw the sharp rejection of this key level, and since the beginning of the week, we have been noticing a bearish momentum here, giving us a bearish trend line after we connected a series of lower highs here. And in fact, since the beginning of this week, price action has consistently respected our trend line to emphasize the strength of the sellers here, leading finally to the breakdown of that support line of that channel between the 1.285 and the 1.277. So we had the breakdown retest yesterday to incite a strong bearish move to the downside. Now, the question at this point in time is, how far will this bearish momentum go? And remember that we have a couple of trend lines, which was as a result of the ascending trend lines we identified earlier. So this is the resistant line of that first major trend line we identified. So we are going to be looking forward to see how the market is going to be reacting to this level. So we have a key level we are going to be using at that juncture. So we have something here along the 1.2700, I guess. Yes, 1.2700 level, as you can see. So we are going to be using that as a yardstick to guide trading activity for today. So we have the 1.2700 level. So you want to mark this level out on your chart. Very, very important, as depending on what happens here, we'll be determining what our next line of action will be for today. So currently price action is trading around that area, sharing a confluence with that trend line, which is the resistant line of that ascending channel we identified earlier. So if buy pressure resumes there, then we get ready to buy. But if price action breaks through to the downside, then at this point we want to be selling again, adding more position to maximize the potential of this bearish move. So now, with the information we have gathered here on the 4 hours time frame, let's scale back down into the 1 hour time frame, where we have been selling the GBPUSD since the beginning of this week. Now scaling down into the 1 hour time frame, this was our setup here, and this was one of the first things we saw at the beginning of the week, where we saw how price action was initially ranging between the 1.28375 and the 1.28100 level to give us a flat channel to work with. And you know how we do it. Whenever we have this kind of flat channel, we remain patient, waiting for key structures to be broken to give us an opportunity to either buy or sell. So we are looking forward to either a breakout of the 1.28375 to look out for buying opportunity, which never happened throughout this week, or the breakdown of the 1.281, which triggered our first sell position for the week. And since then, we have been riding this move all the way to the downside. And during our live session yesterday, where were we during the live session? Okay, yesterday we were anticipating the breakdown of the 1.277. Remember, we're waiting for this breakdown to happen. We said the breakdown retest will welcome selling opportunities, which actually did. And if you had moved your stop loss accordingly, price would have taken you out with some profit, as we saw price come back to retest the structure. And remember what I said yesterday, that as long as this trend line is respected, we continue to look out for opportunities to sell. So since that is going to be the case, we have been selling, and well done to everyone who are taking advantage of these opportunities. So right now we are at a very critical point in the market. That is the 1.2700 level, a very strong psychological area considering the round figure of that price. So a breakdown of this level as well will be welcoming an opportunity to add more sell position to our existing trade. So if you are taking advantage of the sell position, well done to you for being on standby to catch that move. Your stop loss should be somewhere right above the 1.27350, which will be dovetailing 27310, which will be dovetailing into about 30 pips stop loss. And let's give room for price action to breathe. And if you had missed out on this one, then you want to be looking out for a breakdown retest of the 1.2700 level. So if you had missed out on this one here, so you want to remain patient and wait for price action to come back, Once it retests the structure, you want to join a sell momentum to the downside at the appearance of selling pressure below the 1.2700 area. So that is how we are going to be trading the GBPUSD today. So things are still looking very bearish in this market. So let's continue to look out for more opportunities to maximize the potential of this move. Now, if you are considering buying the GBPUSD today, I will tell you that you just need to remain patient at this point, as we can see price action has continued to break down key structures on the GBPUSD. So the only thing that want me to buy the GBPUSD is for price action to climb back above and then break out of this bearish trend line, here. So it's only if I can see a breakout of this bearish trend line that I could start considering buying the GBPUSD today. So for now, at this point in time, it's still looking very, very bearish. And if it so happens that price action comes back, probably climbs back above into the 1.277, there is still a chance that price will come here, retest the structure to incite the trend continuation. So it's more bearish today than bullish. So let's be on standby to be part of all of these opportunities. So that is that on the GBPUSD. If you have questions, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So I will take the next 10 to 15 seconds to read through the comments, see if there are any questions, after which I will be moving on to the next instrument. All right, so I can see 21192, good morning. 8352, how you buy or sell? Okay, I'm not sure I understand what you mean by that. How you buy or sell? Are you talking about the GBPUSD? Please let me know in the comment section if you are still there. So what do you really mean? Do you mean how do we buy or sell the GBPUSD, or how to buy and sell on your platform? Which one? Please let me know. Okay, 65756 says XAUUSD. Of course, yes, we are going to be doing XAUUSD in a moment. It's part of the instrument on our watch list, so stay tuned in. Okay, we will be treating XAUUSD in a moment. Okay, 352 says yes. Okay, GBPUSD, I just explained that right now. So let me quickly do a recap of what I talked about here. So what I'm trying to say on the GBPUSD, you have the GBPUSD chart on your screen right now. So we already have a breakdown of the 1.2770, which will have triggered some sell positions at that point. And I told you that if you sell below the 1.2700 level, you want to be having your stop loss somewhere around above the 1.272. Hold on a second, let me show you. So you want to be having your stop loss somewhere around here, as you want to give room for price action to breed. Now, if this continues, if you had missed out on this one, then you want to see price action break down, then do a retest of structure. The retest can come into the 1.270, or it could come into the 1.27200 level, where continued selling pressure below the structure will give us an opportunity to add more position to our existing trade. So for the selling pressure, we can look out for patterns like reversal patterns. It could be a double top structure, it could be a head and shoulder pattern, or it could even be a rising wedge, which would help us to confirm that sellers are gradually gaining momentum. And like I said here, I said if buy pressure resumes around this area and takes us back into the trend line, we shouldn't worry that we could still see price come back like this into the structure. If it does, then depending on how price action reacts to the structure and the 1.2770 will determine if we are going to be selling, that is if rejections happens. But if breakout happens, then we want to be looking out for buying opportunities at the breakout retest of that level. So that is how we are going to be buying. I want to see price action take out the bearish trend line, the red thick line on your screen, before I want to start considering buying the GBPUSD. But as long as price remains below that trend line, we will have no other choice than to look out for selling opportunities below the structure. So that's what I'm simply explaining here. I hope I made myself clear. All right, so with that being said here, we shall be moving on to the next instrument. And the next instrument on our watch list is the XAUUSD. I hope 65756 is still around. If you're still around, let me know in the comment section. So back to the XAUUSD chart. Now on the XAUUSD, we have been selling this commodity since the beginning of this week. Good morning, Liberdade. How are you doing today? All right. So on the XAUUSD, we have been selling this commodity since the beginning of the week. In fact, the first thing we observed at the beginning of the week was our key level at the 1,960 area. And since the beginning of this week, price action has been trading below our key level. And as long as price trades below our key level, you know what we do. We have no other choice than to continue to look out for selling opportunities in this market. And in addition to that key level, there was this simple flat channel we identified where price action was ranging between the $1,958.50 level and the $1,953.50 level to give us a flat channel to work with. And you know how we use our channels. We want to wait for either a breakout of the resistant line to give us an opportunity to buy, which never happened. And we saw the breakdown of this one, which triggered our sell position. And in fact, price action came back to retest that area multiple times to give us a sign that sellers are very, very strong around this area. So you could see how the 1,953, after it has been broken and retested to the downside, had continued to help us guide a bearish momentum to the downside. So for those who took advantage of this bearish move all the way to the downside, well done to you guys for being on standby. As we have over, let's see how many pips right now, over 180 pips in profit on the XAUUSD bearish momentum. Now, with the situation we have at this particular point in time, what is going to be our next line of action? Well, first of all, let me state this. For those who have a sell position still running at this particular point in time, you obviously want to be moving your stop losses to secure this current position, as you don't want to lose out on whatever you had made so far. And considering the fact that price action remains above a very strong demand zone, which I will be elaborating on in a moment, we definitely want to secure this position. And the most appropriate area I think we can move our stop losses to is anywhere around the $1,939.50 level and the $1,936.50 area to secure this position. And the reason simply because we want to give room for price action to breathe. So with a position well secured at this point, what is going to be our next line of action on the XAUUSD? So in order to identify how we are going to be trading this today, I have a simple setup on a much more lower time frame which we are going to be using, but it is very important that we take a look at the higher time frame so that we can have an holistic perspective into what is really going on in this particular market. And to do that, I want to scale up into the 4 hours time frame, where just to refresh our memories on what we saw at the beginning of the week on this chart. Now, at the beginning of the week, if you remember vividly, we acknowledged that we had lower highs in this market, giving us a bearish trend line after we connected a series of lower highs. And in fact, this trend line had been guiding our bearish momentum since the mid-month of May. However, something interesting is happening on this current market structure. Despite the strong lower highs here, we are yet to see lower lows in this market to emphasize the strength of the sellers. And if you look at this closely, you would notice how the $1,930 level has continued to negate all attempt by the sellers to break through the structure. This whole thing started at the beginning of this month. I think the last trading day of last month stroke the first day of this month, we saw this first attempt where buyers negated sellers' pressure around that area. We also saw it happen here during the mid-month of June, where we saw attempt by sellers to break through It failed at that particular point in time, and during the course of the New York session yesterday, we saw this bearish engulfing candle bringing price back into the zone, and since price tested that zone again, we have been noticing buy pressure around that area. Now, what this simply tells us is that this level is a very, very strong buying niche in this market. And not only if this level is broken to the downside, can we strongly be thinking of adding or selling more position on the XAUUSD. And considering the fact that we have been noticing buy pressure around here since yesterday stroke this morning, we want to take this level as our center of focus for today. And in order to do this, I was able to identify a simple setup that we are going to be using to guide our trading activity for today on a much more lower time frame. So with the information we have gathered here, I just needed to show you how important the level we are currently in right now is in correlation with the holistic perspective in this market before we go into the details of what our expectation is looking like for today. So scaling down into the 30 minutes time frame, where I was able to find a simple setup we are going to be using today. So you want to be marking these levels out on your chart right now. So this was what I was able to spot here on the XAUUSD 30 minutes time frame. And so following the impulsive move to the downside yesterday, we saw how price action dropped significantly into this area around the 1930 level, which I shared with you on the higher time frame. So we saw buying pressure resume around that area to negate sellers' attempt to break through that structure. We saw the same thing also happen here during the early hours of today to give us signs that that level still has a lot of buying pressure around that area. Now, with the situation we have here, it is very likely that this whole pattern, with this transition of price action, could evolve into a double bottom structure. As you can see, price came back into the $1,938.70 level. We saw price action drop down again. The inability of price action to break through the previous low is a sign that we might likely be seeing this transition into what will be looking like a double bottom structure. And you know that whenever we start suspecting that price action is transitioning into a reversal pattern, the next thing we want to be doing here is to identify the neckline of this potential reversal pattern, as the breakout of that neckline will be what we need to confirm the potency and the validity of that reversal pattern. So we already have a neckline situated at the $1,930 level, 70-cent level, where I want to see price action take out that position to give me an opportunity to buy the XAUUSD. So a breakout retest will be confirming that we want to be buying at that point. So that is the first scenario we are looking at here. So it's only when price breaks out of this level that we are going to be considering buying the XAUUSD today. However, if this pressure continues to the downside, hold on a second. Okay, so after identifying the neckline here, what I saw here was these lower highs after bringing out my line chart. So you can see we had lower highs here. So the reason why I drilled this trend line here was to support a bearish move, because it's a very strong bearish momentum. So I sold at the 1936 because I'm very profitable on the XAUUSD, of course. So I wanted to leverage on the profit I had made so far to maximize the bullish move, the bearish move. So I sold below that area, and I said here that as long as price remain below that trend line, I will still feel comfortable in a sell position. However, if price action breaks out of this trend line to the upside, something like this breaks out, and then I see something like a retest of structure where the appearance of buy pressure resumes above this area, then I will be changing my bias to bullish. So I want to be buying at the appearance of buy pressure on my lower time frame. Then I will have a buy stop order above the 1938, and this will help me to be able to maximize the potential of this potential reversal pattern that we have here. So that is how I'm going to be considering buying this one. Now, if this does not happen today and price action continues to drop to the downside, then I want to see price action take out this demand zone along the 1,931 level to give me an opportunity to add more position to my existing sell trade. So I want to see a breakdown of the structure, retest on my lower time frame to give me the privilege of joining a bearish momentum in this particular market. So let's mark these levels out on our chart. You want to mark out this demand zone where if you are not in a sell position yet, I will advise you to wait for price action to break through the 1,931 level before joining any bearish move to the downside. So let me mark this level out. So for those who would like to screenshot my screen, so I have the 1,931 level marked out here. So you also want to mark that level out on your chart. So if price breaks down this level, then this will welcome the idea of looking out for selling opportunities in this market. So let's see how this is going to play out in the next couple of hours. Breakdown, retest, welcome selling opportunity, and let's be on standby to catch that move. So any questions, everyone? If you have questions regarding what I just explained, or you need me to make some clarifications, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to read through the chat and see if there are any questions before we move on to the last instrument for today. Okay. Okay, 65756. Okay, you are welcome. Trust you are still in the house. Hope you got my explanation right. Let me know in the comment section if you're still around. 65756. Okay, Eunice 84, how are you doing this morning? Good morning to you. What about USDJPY? Of course, we are going to deal with USDJPY in a moment. That is our last instrument for today, so stay tuned in, okay? We are going to be treating that in a moment. All right. Okay, so in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we're on the same page here. So we shall be moving into the last instrument for today, which is the USDJPY. Now, we have a very complicated, of course, but interesting setup we have on this instrument. And what we saw here today, this week so far, has been a very choppy and range-bound situation on this chart. Now, we are on the 1 hour time frame here, and if you remember vividly at the beginning of the week, we acknowledged that price action has been ranging between our key level, which is situated at the 142.00 area, and the 141.500 level to give us a flat channel, which also emphasized the level of indecision in this market. And the indecision in this market is very much connected to the economic data from the US and the Japan's economic dockets. And remember, we had hold on a second, let's look at the economic calendar here so that I don't get things mixed up. So yesterday, on Tuesday, we had the BOJ monetary policy meeting came up, and as a result of that, majority were very indecisive as whether kept on to a loose monetary policy. And then the first chairman's power certification today is another factor here that has left the market nearly risk averse since the beginning of the week. And as a result of that, we have seen price action continue to stay within a range, hereby emphasizing the level of indecision in this market. Though we had some couple of buy positions yesterday, of course, we had some prior to yesterday's live session. I told us how we lost this position. We had a buy trigger here. It closed at break even. Then the second one opened, but we were taken out in a loss on this one. And remember that we had a sell stop order below the 141.750, like I said here, that if we have a breakdown retest of this trend line and the 141.750, that we are going to be part of a bearish move, which we did, and we rode that move all the way to the downside, about 56 pips in profit before this bullish momentum began. And in fact, we were able to use that move to recoup the loss we had at the beginning of the week. Now, since yesterday, now we have seen a situation where price action has continued to find higher highs and higher lows in this market after testing the 141.300 level. Now, what I did this morning was to connect the series of higher lows here to emphasize the bullish move. So I have a trend line. So I have a major trend line here, which is a thick green line on your screen, this one. And then I have a temporary one, which is the second one. I will be highlighting now the second one here. So now going into the New York session today, what we are going to be doing on the USDJPY is to see how price action will be reacting to this temporary trend line here. So we are at a very important confluence here, which sits exactly above the 141.750 level. So it now depends on how price action reacts to this trend line that will determine if we are going to be buying or selling the USDJPY today. So one of the things I'm going to be looking out for along this trend line is something like a double bottom structure to emphasize the bullish momentum that started yesterday, something like this. Then I want to advise you at this point to have a buy stop order above the 142.00 level, since we already have a breakout of that structure already this morning. So a retest will definitely be welcoming an opportunity to join that move to the upside. So if I see buy pressure resume along this trend line and above the 141.750, then we have no other choice than to look out for buying opportunity. So in that regard, I'm having a buy stop order above the 142.00 level to capture this move to the upside. However, if price action breaks down the trend line to the downside and we have something like this retest of structure, the idea of selling will start coming in. But for me, I will suggest that if we start seeing selling pressure like this retest of structure, we could have a sell stop order below the 141.750 and be very, very careful to monitor price action as it drops to the downside. Remember, we have a trend line here which we connected after identifying the higher lows here. So as soon as price gets into that level, you want to be moving your stop losses to secure the sell position if price breaks through the 141.750. And if this happens, whatever happens here will now be a determinant of where price action is likely going to be going. So if the buy pressure resumes again, remember you have moved your stop losses to entry point and we are taking out of the position, and this will be another opportunity to join a trend continuation to the upside. But if price action breaks through the trend line to the downside, which also shares a confluence with the 141.500, a retest of structure followed by selling pressure on our lower time frame will be giving us the privilege to join a sell-off in this market. So we have a very simple setup here on the USDJPY, which if you can use it correctly, you will be able to capture a potential move here. So you want to mark these levels out on your chart. The first one here is the 141.750, where we want to look out for reversal patterns above that area to emphasize buying pressure, and then place a buy stop order above the 142.00 level to capture that move to the upside. Now, if price breaks down the 141.750 and this trend line, we want to mark this trend line too on your chart, then we shall be looking out for selling opportunities below the structure. And mind you what I said here, that if price drops below the trend line and the 141.750, selling pressure continues, we join. As soon as price gets into this trend line, you move all stop losses to secure the position and wait to see how price action reacts to this level to determine what the next line of action will be. And I said here, if buy pressure resumes, we get ready to buy. If if a breakdown happens, we get ready to sell the USDJPY for today. So mark these levels out on your charts. You might as well screenshot my screen so that you can use them as a reference point when you're about to make your independent decision for today. So that is my view here on the USDJPY. I hope I've made myself clear. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to read through the charts and see if there are any questions. Hionis 84, okay, you're welcome. Trust you found that helpful. And if you have questions, feel free to let me know in the comment section. 8352 says, can you make a clarification? Clarification on what, please? Let me know. On what? Which one? 8352, are you still in the house? I'm still taking my time. I'm waiting. Okay, that's great. Eunice 84. I'm glad you found it useful. I wish you the best of luck today. You're welcome. 8352. I was asking that you said I should make a clarification. I was asking what clarification? Clarification on what? USD, okay. Which of the USD pairs? Which of the USD pairs? We had a couple of USD pairs today. We had the GBPUSD, we had the USDJPY, and of course we had the XAUUSD. So which one of them are you talking about? 8352. I'm waiting. Okay, I guess Oli. All right, now I understand. Okay, so in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we're on the same page, and I hope you are able to screenshot my screen, mark out the levels we identified, and I'm very confident and hopeful that we are all prepared to catch any potential trading opportunity during the New York session today. So let's remain patient. If you have a position running, move your stop losses, secure your positions at the point in time as we anticipate the Fed's certification coming up in about 2 hours from now. And on that note, I wish you all best of luck today. And for those who are joining us for the first time, I hope you are able to gain one or two things from what we discussed today. And trust me, the more time you spend with us, the more you get to understand how this works. And eventually, you will be able to use the information you have gathered here to make your independent decisions on your own account. So do have a wonderful evening, everyone. And I look forward to seeing you same time tomorrow, 10 a.m. UTC. 11 a.m. West African time as we come here again to review how well the instrument we are monitoring so far has been doing, and at the same time get ready for the New York session tomorrow. I remain my humble self, Sharif Daramola. I wish you best of luck today and do have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.